Whenever we work with migration, there is one golden rule that you should remember. Always make small changes and small migration. Try to create as many migrations as you can with smaller changes so that it can be identified with what was done by the name. If you try to combine 3 or 4 changes in a single migration, it might end up having a confusion at the end when you look at what was done. Even when you have to roll back for some reason, it will be troublesome if you do that. So always try to make small changes and make small migrations. Next thing is the first scenario that we took care of is when we add a new class or table in the database. We created 2 classes, genre and category, and we pushed those to the database and we created those tables. After that, what we have is we can add a new property or column to the table. Let's take a look at that. So if we go back to our Visual Studio, we have the genre class. Let's say with the string name, you also want another integer property called as display order. Now that we have changed our model, we have added one more property. We need to update this to our database. So for that, updating is simple and will follow the same steps. We will go to Tools, NuGet Package Manager console. We will add a new migration. So I'll say add migration, add display order to genre table. That is meaningful and it also signifies everything that we did with this migration. Let's add this. And we'll take a look at what's being done here. It's just adding a column display order in genres table of type int. That sounds good. Let's update the database to push these changes. So this is how you can add any of the properties to any of the existing classes. Let's switch back to the presentation. And after that, another feature would be you want to modify any of the existing property or column in a table. So let's say we go back here and we have the genres. Now right here we have the name and display order. Let's say rather than name, we want to change this to genre name. After we do that, we will save this and we need to add a new migration because we are changing a column name and that needs to be updated inside the database. So in the console here, we'll add a new migration and we'll call it change name to genre name in genre table. Perfect. You can see here there is a warning. An operation was scaffolded that may result in loss of data. Here we are just renaming the column. Why could there be loss of data? Let's examine that in the migration. You can see what it's doing in the migration is it is actually dropping the name column and it creates a new column with the name genre name. So it's not actually doing a renaming, it is removing a column and adding a new column. Now that might be dangerous in some scenarios. If you want to do this, I want to retain the values that were there inside the genre. In order to do that, you can use basic SQL commands and you can insert them within migrations. So what you can do is before you drop the actual column, we will cut this. Let's create a new column. Perfect. And then before we drop the column, let's copy all the values from name to this genre name. That can be done using a SQL statement. But we have not seen how we can execute a SQL statement within the migration. So for that, we can use migration builder. We have a SQL method. In here within string, you can pass the SQL that you want to execute. I will just paste that command. All we want to do is we'll use an update statement and we'll say update dbo.genre set genre name is equal to name. Once we paste it in the genre name, we can drop the name column. We don't care about it. We'll have to make the same inside the down method here. Down method signifies what should be the protocol that it should do if it gets any error while executing this. So it will be in the reverse order than what happens right here. so we'll have to modify that as well. First thing is we'll add the old column which was name and we'll drop the new column genre. Along with that, we also need to update the name again. So we'll copy the SQL statement and we'll paste it right here. Now this does not get executed unless it gets any error while executing the above statements. And here we'll have to set the name equal to genre name, so we'll reverse it out. This looks great, but before we test this, let me go to SQL Server here and let me manually add a few genre. So I'll do edit, I'll add test, give it a display order of 1, I'll add test 2 and give it a display order of 3. Let me close this. If you do select star from genre, you will see both the records. Now let's execute this command, and this time the name of the column should change to genre name and we should still retain the values. So we'll go here and we'll just update the database. Whoops, I have a spelling mistake there. There we go. And we have an error here which says invalid object name dbo.genres, and because it should be a plural name. There we go. Save it. And we just need to execute the update database command one more time. If we switch back to our SQL Server and we do F5, we will see invalid column name. So we'll just do select star and we'll hit F5. The column name has been changed from name to genre name, and you also notice that it has moved to the end. Previously name was between, so that means that column was dropped and a new column was created. So this way you can see that even when you have to rename the column name and you want to make sure your data stays intact, how you can accomplish that. In this video, we also learned one important feature, which is how we can execute SQL commands within our migration.